Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, exploring the Illuminati Occult Part 41, Chinese Freemasonry, San Francisco, and the New World Order. And it's all happening right here, right now, in a few days at the APEC, this summit in San Francisco. Xi Jinping will finally meet Joe Biden, but what's really behind it will be explored today with this new episode of the Leo Zagami Show. So good evening, everybody from all over the world. You follow us also in various time differences, so I can't really say good evening. I have to say good evening, good night, good morning, good everything. Okay, you are tuning in. That's good. Please, of course, share this video. Put like, and we will start right here, right now, with our dance macabre.
I left my donation list on the refrigerator. I have to go get it.
What? Okay.
I have a list.
Oh, you have a list?
I have a list.
Oh, well, at least we have a few sponsors.
So I get my list?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I'll be right back.
Okay, Christy goes and gets the list. Like I said, today the subject is a very interesting one and is connected with the here and the now, aside from having a long history. So here we go. First of all, thanking a sponsor is our priority because it's of it's a maximum urgency too.
Okay, so we have Danielle Estes and Philippe Beller and Bruce Kodish and Margarizada Minta. Hi, Margarizada. She's in the UK. And Frederick Winfield. He's new. So thank you, guys.
If we ever forget somebody, please write a Ordo Illuminatorum Universalis, and that's at gmail.com, our own private email address that you can use, so you can tell us, well, maybe, you missed me. It happens. It happens. Okay, so the dance macabre. We are broadcasting at the moment live on Facebook, and then YouTube in the coming hours. But we also usually broadcast on band.video. That's one of our platforms. This week, however, we were a little bit disappointed because we used to be featured amongst the first stars of the band.video, in this bar that you have all the various icons with the various shows. And now we have been moved down. We're not really appreciated so much on band.video, even when we materialized over 100,000 views for only one video. That was okay. Well, if you don't appreciate us, what can we do? I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed by Alex and Infowars, who have not invited me once in 2023. It seems like maybe my narrative, my fight against the New World Order is not so popular anymore. But let's remember that Leo Zagami was here when David Icke was here, when Nice Jones was here, and many others were not here, that now, claim to fight, claim to bring you all sorts of information. So very disappointed in the latest editorial choices of Infowars. We hope that people will still be able to follow this video, however, on band.video. And if they censor us or they remove us from band.video, well, who cares? Who cares? What can we do? What can we do? Okay. Our subject, no, because it's important that people understand, that people ask me, but why are you not going on Infowars anymore? It's not me.
Shouldn't even be a question anymore. It's been so long.
They simply don't invite me, and they must be scared of something, because that's the only reason. And of course, they have courtesy, in a very courteous way, given me this Band of Video channel, but then they never followed up with anything else, and now the Band of Video channel has been relegated.
I think you're just going to move on down until one day you're going to look and it's not going to be there. But then on that day, then probably InfoWars won't be there either. So
who cares? Very disappointed, though. Very disappointed that they are not featuring our Leo Zagami show channel any longer amongst the first ones on this bar they had there. Okay, but whatever, it's their own loss, not us. And
time will tell. So.
For those who want to support us, aside from the donations, you can purchase the latest book of Leo Lion Zagami, Volume 9, or all the others, Volume 8, Volume 7. Volume 7 in particular is an important one today because it discusses the Sino-Russian New World Order. And the topic of today is a very particular, is one that is going to definitely create a lot of interest. So welcome everybody. I'm going to also put, of course, for those who want to help us, the GoFundMe address that you can use. We are no longer, of course, on PayPal. They have banned us several times, but you can still use GoFundMe, which is a great opportunity. Even if you have PayPal, you can use GoFundMe. Yeah, there's a modality that permits it. So I'm going to put it here on the screen for those who are interested, of course. Chinese Freemasons are behind the upcoming Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation that is happening starting from today, I think. And then next Wednesday, Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping plan to meet in San Francisco on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Forum. And this Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, known as APEC. Biden's press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, outlined that they would discuss the continued importance of maintaining open lines of communications and how the two large economic and military powers, and here I end the quote of Karine Jean-Pierre, can continue to responsibly, and I continue, I can continue, I can open the quote again, responsibly manage competition and work together. But a lot of people are wondering, is this connected also to the trip that Newsom had a couple of weeks ago to China? What's really going on?
Is he in Chinese Freemasonry?
Now, this is important to understand, and that's why today I'm going to open this Pandora's box. The November 15 meeting will be the second face-to-face meeting Biden has held with Xi since the start of his presidency, and will happen at the end of a year that witnessed spiraling relations, especially after the February spy balloon fiasco and shutdown. Remember that? In the meantime, the progressive leadership of San Francisco, of the crime-infested San Francisco, has undertaken a massive effort to improve the city image for the event, trying to change the shit-covered streets, because that's what they had. By temporarily getting rid of the homeless and all open-air drug markets, these measures have been implemented, and of course, as a short-term solution ahead of the Global Trade Summit that will flood the city with world leaders and corporate executives. So let's see what Newsom said about it, because Newsom is basically preparing the city for this great event, a city which, like we said, was literally covered in human feces, and he's spending over $1 billion to clean up this city from feces and stuff. I mean, it's like quite incredible what is happening. So let's check out that hypocrite of governor. What he says, no, it's not this. That's not the right video. That's not the right video. So let me find the right video. In the meantime, welcome everybody. Here we are. Here we have Newsom. Here we have Newsom.
This state California Governor Gavin Newsom touting what is known as the Clean California program at the unveiling of this street tree nursery in San Francisco.
I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true. But it's also true for months and months and months prior to APEC, we've been having different conversations.
Conversations about ways to clean.
Conversations, I mean, it's true that we're doing this, but we have been having conversations, he said. Conversations about what?
Clean up and beautify cities in California, like San Francisco. Newsom says this is now a $1.2 billion Clean California program. Part of that has gone to Caltrans, clearing 3,275 encampments across the state since 2021. Other funds will go to buying, growing, and planting these trees in urban areas of San Francisco.
It's the most significant commitment that we know of any state in the nation, even on a per capita basis, to begin the process of at least turning things around.
Public Works crews tell me that in 6 months, these trees will be planted in neighborhoods including the Tenderloin, Soma, and Bayview. Newsom says red tape having to do with the liability of city officials operating locations like this on state property is part of what had previously pushed this Clean Initiative project and many others back. The governor addressing numerous questions.
Do you think really that we can save the world with a few little trees? Huh? There is a cleanup, over $1 billion project.
How long did they do this for?
Oh, cleaning up for the last week, because they have this summit coming up and they want to make brutta figura, as they say in Italy. The annual Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, which is known as APEC, that is now taking place in San Francisco, is the largest international event in the city since world leaders gathered there in 1945 to sign the charter to create the infamous United Nations, based on the New World Order, which of course is still currently taking place. A lot has changed in 78 years, including radical leftists in City Hall, which have pushed failed defund the police policies that have transformed parts of the region into an out-control crime-infested hellhole. This is happening all over California. It's really sad. The New York Post confirmed the folks at City Hall began pushing drug addicts, dealers, and homeless from the downtown area to other parts of the city. This just in proximity of this big event, in an effort that some believe is to conceal their failed policies from the international community during APEC. So many of you will be wondering at this point, I think, why the meeting is taking place, with some of the most powerful people in the world taking place in San Francisco. Surely a lot of you would say it's not a suitable town for this historic event. Well, the answer is in the headquarters of one of the most powerful Chinese organization that styles itself as the Chinese Freemasons, even if recently the Wikipedia has removed that wording is still present if you search, and also in the symbols, of course, because they use the compass and the square. They are also known as Bast Family, Hongmen, or Hall of Universal Justice, Chi Kong Tong. And their headquarters are in San Francisco. So now we need to explain to our audience here in America why one of the most powerful Chinese secret societies is based here in America and not in China. I mean, I think that people will start to wonder why the Chi Kong Tong or Ji Kung Tong, depending on the word, how you want to spell it. This is a Chinese secret society established in 1880, but the origins are a little bit older, actually much older, and can be traced to the Tiandui, the Heaven and Earth Society, also called Hongmen. And we had an experience, me and Christy, with this secret society in Japan. And I know she's laughing because, actually, you made some photos but let's first of all explain what is this Tiandui, because it has nothing to do with Western Freemasonry. And so it's a Chinese fraternal organization built by the Chinese Illuminati, and historically it's basically in the vein of the Ming loyalist White Lotus sect. Why the White Lotus sect is so important? Well, the White Lotus sect was created basically right at the start of the dynasty, the Ming dynasty, that preceded the Qing dynasty, which is basically the Manchurian dynasty. It's very important to this, and I have to explain it, because it's very important for you to understand who are viewing me, because these are implications on your own life, on your own well-being currently. I mean, you might ignore it, but then you're gonna go tomorrow morning and buy another made in China product and continue to ignore it, because this has to do with what is happening right here, right now, and it's gonna happen in a few days in San Francisco, out of all places. So it's important that you understand why San Francisco is the headquarters of the most powerful Chinese Illuminati sect that came out of this gathering of organizations known, because not only one, but it is commonly referred as Hongmen. Also the why Hong, and I will explain also why it's called in that way, Hongmen or Hong Moon. There is a very specific reason. So the White Lotus sect helped the Ming dynasty arrive to power. And the Ming dynasty lasted several centuries. They were the ones who constructed the big wall in China, the one that, that everybody knows. The Ming dynasty was the one that finished the wall, let's say, okay? So the Ming dynasty, it's a relatively recent dynasty compared to the thousands and thousands years history of China. It lasted from 1368 and 1644. And it was the secret society, the White Lotus sect, that put them into power. So the moment in which the Ming dynasty was removed by the competition that materialized with the Qing dynasty, then at that point, they went underground and they started to remanifest as secret societies. As secret societies that were no longer the White Lotus sect, but manifested through the Tiandui, the Heaven and Earth Society. And of course, this is very confusing for normal people, but because this happened in the period in which in Europe, there was, of course, Freemasonry that was starting to manifest also and was starting to gather a lot of people around. Well, the Chinese, as usual, took the symbols of Freemasonry, like they take everything else, they copied it, and they use it. They copy and paste, and they use it for their own sect, their own triads. Because one thing that contradicts this Hongmen is the constant use of the triangle in the symbolism. And of course, this triangle then adapts very well to everything that goes with Freemasonry, which is usually also with 3 dots. It's characterized and is part of the Masonic teachings, but it kind of reverts very easily also on the... Can you pass me those 2 books over there? That's very important. Now, like I said, we have the Chinese Freemasons, but the Chinese Freemasons have their headquarters no longer in China, where they actually have even a political party, but they have the headquarters in San Francisco, and we're going to go and check out also their headquarters, which are connected directly with the Democratic Party. So there is a direct connection there. Now, so the connection with why taking everybody to San Francisco for this historic event? Well, because it's the headquarters of the Chinese Freemason, and the headquarters of the Chinese Freemason is there for a reason. And now I will explain also the reason. The Qi Gong Tong or Ji Gong Tong, like I said, that is part of the Tiandui setup, let's say. The Chinese Freemasons, as they call themselves, which I have discussed, by the way, extensively in Volume 2 of my Confessions, are a secret society dedicated to overthrow the Manchu dynasty that started in 1644. From the moment in which they took over from the Ming dynasty, the Manchu dynasty became the enemy. And because also China didn't really go, the economy of China didn't go that well, and the societal situation was difficult, that's when these secret societies can recruit more easily, offering mutual assistance, but also offering the possibility of protection and possibly with the promise of overthrowing the Qing dynasty. Now, they didn't manage to repristinate the Ming dynasty, but in 1911, they will eventually overthrow the Qing dynasty, the Manchu dynasty. They will overthrow in 1911. The problem is that in the period between 1911 and 1949, in which, by the way, and I will show you also now, the Western Freemasons also tried to open lodges, finally, regular lodges in China. Well, that were banned eventually in 1951 when the communists arrived to power. Well, you know what happened in 1949. Mao Zedong takes control of China. Mao Zedong and the Communist Party. China becomes a communist nation. And so regular Freemasonry is no longer tolerated, but the Hongmen and the Chinese Freemasonry will always be tolerated. And they will still continue to this day in other places that are very important for our story. One of them is Hong Kong. Hong Kong, of course, was under British rule, but Hong Kong was also, like Macau, the headquarters of gambling, prostitution, opium trade, Hong Kong, opium trade, Skull and Bones, Yale University, constructed with the money of the opium trade, the dirty money of the opium trade, with the compromises of US Illuminati in Yale University. So here we are, trying to explain all this history, which is rather complex, but is important. So they tried to overthrow this Q dynasty, but in the end, by overthrowing it, they didn't manage to reestablish the old Ming dynasty. At one point, there was even a guy that they were trying, that claimed to descend from the Ming dynasty before that they were trying to, but they didn't. That didn't happen in 1911. In 1911, who took power were the triads, were the secret societies of Chinese Freemasonry, and was a man in particular who was born in China, but at a very early age ended up moving to Hawaii, and as somebody who will eventually even manage to gather miraculously an American citizenship by forging a passport and his birth in Hawaii. Somebody else did that. By the way, the Qigong Tong, let's go back to the Qigong Tong, because Qigong Tong, very important also in Hawaii. Let's remember always the connection with Hawaii. Hawaii then became American, but wasn't always American. And there was a very large Asian presence. And because of I think the cotton fields or something they had there that was of interest for the Chinese, they had a big Chinese community in Hawaii. In any case, just to explain how Chinese Freemasonry works, because our story is very complex, and my wife today told me that her head was like this when I tried to explain it, because it's really complex. When you start talking about European Freemasonry, American Freemasonry, but when you go into Chinese history and Freemasonry, it becomes very complex. So if you're not an historian, or just open a little bit and bear attention. The Qigong Tong was originally part of 5 factions of these Hongmen, of these Freemasons that came from different cities in China. The main province was Fujian. Then there is the city of Guangzhou. There's the cities that are very important for Freemasons in China. But let's move in the story. By joining this association, basically, if you were a Chinese living abroad, it was less likely that you would return to China because the membership in Chinese Freemasonry equal to death if your membership was discovered before 1911. That's for sure. So as a result, Chinese Freemasonry was and still is a very secretive society with 36 sworn oaths on a number of subjects, secret greeting rituals and code words. So older members usually recruit younger members because they pay very big fees to join this. When this society started to shape up, they didn't ask small fees, but big fees. And why is that? Because you ask a big fee, okay, fine. But then if you introduce somebody else, the person who is introducing you, also he deserves part of the fee. And so if you introduce new people, that's a way of recovering the money from the fee you pay.
It's like a pyramid scheme.
It is a pyramid scheme. It was a Chinese pyramid scheme. It was a Chinese pyramid scheme.
It's a Chinese pyramid scheme.
That is regarding the books that I'm consulting today and that I will get Christy to read, one of them is The Dragon Syndicates by Martin Booth, which I regard as one of the best books on this subject. And also a book by a French gentleman called René Guénon, The Great Triad, which is very important to understand. And here, though, I need the, can you pick me up my glasses, which are there?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much, please, yes. Yes, no, my glasses there, yes, thanks. Okay, so.
I'm errand girl today.
Okay, so here we are. So René Guénon was a Freemason, but he was also a great initiate. His story is very long. We might dedicate a whole show only to him, so we might not even. The important thing about this division in three, no? This division in three, so you have the sky, the earth, and man. These are the three elements that in a way form this triad. Okay, now the Tuen Hui, which of course can be translated as the society of the sky and the earth, it's basically a secret society that has, of course, also an esoteric element and has also very ancient origins, because let's first of all finish a little bit the description of what I'm starting, so you understand the importance and also the direct connection with San Francisco, because this connection with San Francisco will take a little bit for people to understand the importance of it, and why they're doing this meeting. Most of the world leaders, Illuminati and Freemasons, next week in San Francisco. Because San Francisco is the most important Chinatown only before British Columbia. British Columbia is another place in Canada. There was a lot of gold that became the second base for the Chinese Freemasons. In Canada, they had the second base. That's very important.
That just creeps me out totally.
Okay, so it's still, I mean, like I said, you have to take 36 sworn oaths. So imagine a Freemason who knows comparing to Freemasonry, the initiation is a bit of a different one, and it's a much more gruesome one. What do you have to do? You are like Benjamin Fulford claimed.
Who?
Well, first, well, but let's go a little bit now, because you did these photos.
Yeah.
We were in a house in which suddenly I discovered the symbol of the hangman, and then he confirmed he was a member.
That's what I did.
Yeah, and you did these photos. I don't think he even knew that you were doing these photos, because he was not around.
He was in the bathroom.
Okay, he was in the bathroom. So I told you, do this photo. And this was me and Christy in Japan in what year? You got a
lot of hair there.
In what year?
2009.
And this is obviously the symbol of the hangman.
You're quite happy and excited to see that. I don't know what that thing is. No. That green thing.
Well, no, but then I also found amongst Fulford the collection a book of the hangman. Here it is. Watch. See, you can notice always the compass and the square symbol.
So I have a question.
Okay.
So he admitted he was part of that. So you don't have to be Chinese to be a Chinese Freemason?
There is a very limited number of Westerners in Chinese Freemasonry. There is even a couple of Japanese. Mostly we find Chinese. There might be some Filipinos, rarely, but mostly it's Chinese. And like I said, it's very rare that they invite a Westerner to join. But you know how integrated Benjamin Fulford is. And Benjamin Fulford claimed at the time that these Chinese Illuminati were threatening the Western Illuminati, which is completely garbage because they want to simply take over. They didn't want to. This was actually me with Mr. Frogman. We called him Mr. Frogman, Benjamin Fulford, which I actually authored a couple of books with, who used to be the senior bureau correspondent for Bloomberg back in the days, I think. Oh, no, actually Forbes. He used to work for Forbes.
Oh, it's Japan.
Yes, it's Japan. Okay, so let me show a second of the details of this hangman Freemasonry, so then you can see it. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you also some other interesting images regarding this time Freemasonry in Canada before we go back to San Francisco. But the first thing I want to show you first is the image in question, which is this one. Here we are, Hangman Worldwide Chinese Union. As you can see, it's, the compass square is... now, in fact, this pissed off a lot the Freemasons here in the West, that said that they didn't have any rights to use them.
Isn't it like copyrighted or something?
No, copyrighted, what, from centuries ago? Copyright, it's long expired at that point. But the actual Freemasons in British Columbia, in particular, where they have a very big, sorry for that, because then a very big Chinese community, and they have a big representations of Chinese Freemasons. They got pretty offended by the use of the, and I want to show you a second, in a second, how they got offended, if I manage here. Sorry. In the meantime, welcome to the Leo Zagami Show with Leo and Christy. We want to thank, of course, all the people who are supporting this show. And, of course, Freemasonry, how it evolved out of the European Enlightenment, bears no resemblance, of course, with the Chinese Freemasons, and that's what we are discussing. And that is what is also discussed openly by some very upset Freemasons in Canada. Here we can show what's... See, Chinese Freemasons, the variable history of the Hangman Society, styling themselves since 1920 as the Chinese Freemasons, offers no justification for the adoption of the name Freemason. So you want to please read, Christy?
From where?
From here.
Okay, the Hangman Chi Kung Tong Chinese Freemasons of Canada had made significant contributions, both in terms of human and financial resources, in its patriotic and enthusiastic support of Dr. Sun Yat-sen's revolutionary efforts to overthrow the Qing dynasty.
You see, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, and here they always talk about Dr. Sun Yat-sen. It's very important, this, because this is what is bringing Xi Jinping to San Francisco. So let me explain you why Xi Jinping is coming to San Francisco. Today, there is even in mainland China a party, which is basically called the Zigong Party, Interest Party of China, that's what it means, is one of the 8 minor political parties in the People's Republic of China that is, of course, subservient to the Chinese Communist Party, and represented in the Chinese People Political Consultative Conference. They have their own, even a minister that represents that is actually representing China, because they are often used, also they use them also abroad to dialogue with Freemasons, because they always trust them as being the rightful alternative to what Western Freemasons are. In Wikipedia, you find this written: the Chinese Zigong Party derives from the overseas Hung Society organization, Hung Society Zhigong Hall, or Qigong Tung, based in San Francisco, United States. I mean, you don't have to make, I don't know what kind of research. You just go on the internet and you will find that basically there is this party, and it's a party that is basically created by this organization, which is here in San Francisco. So let me find it for the people who are watching us, so they can maybe understand this, because I mean, to understand that there is in San Francisco the headquarters of something that is guiding a party in China,
I mean,
it's a little bit far out. Now, I know it's pretty far out.
It goes against all the cartoons I watched when I was a kid.
What kind of cartoons you watch?
They always showed like these Chinese, and I forgot what cartoon it was, but there was like this Chinese guy, and I think it was Bugs Bunny or something, and he was bad.
No, I think when I was a kid, I was more disturbed by the Fu Manchu, which after they prohibited because they thought it was racist. The Fu Manchu, you remember all those films and also TV series is based on this evil sect Chinese guy with the thing Fu Manchu, and he was, and then they prohibited it because suddenly the Chinese became too powerful, and they said to Hollywood that you can no longer produce films that expose us in that wrong light. So that was the end of the Fu Manchu saga. The Zhigong Party, as you can see, watch. I mean, you don't even need to go on. They are quite open, and they say it. The Zhigong Party derives from the overseas Hung Society organization, so Zhigong Hall or Qigong Tung, based in San Francisco. The organization was one of the key supporters of Sun Yat-sen in his revolutionary effort to overthrow the King. Sun Yat-sen, why is he so important? Because he's considered the father of Taiwan, the Republic of China, as well as the precursor to the revolution. Now, just a second. So, what happens is here. San Francisco was originally the home of the first Tong in the United States. Tong, it's a kind of organization. It's an organization is found amongst Chinese immigrants, predominantly living in the United States or in smaller numbers in Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom, of course, which has a very big Chinese population because they were also in charge of Hong Kong for a long time. And plus, they had a lot of business relations with China. In Chinese, the word Tong means hall or gathering place. Okay, that's what Tong means. It's like a lodge, basically. It means it's like a lodge. In reaction to the hostility that the Chinese immigration faced here in America, especially from American workers upon their arrival, the Chinese reacted by embracing even more these Tongs, these secret societies. In Billy Lee's memoir, The Chinese Playground, which records the activities of the Tong Gang in San Francisco, he states that the oppression the Chinese immigrants faced led them to turn to the Tong for protection. While it is true that the Tong offer protection, it is unclear if this protection was forced to gain control of territory, which I think is the case for the distribution also of the group many illicit activities that go on to this day, which included, of course, opium back then, and now includes fentanyl and a lot of other stuff. Now, during the plague outbreak in Chinatown of San Francisco, which I repeat is the most important Chinatown in America, and one probably of the most important Chinatowns in the world, with a community historically that goes back, because the Chinese helped building the rail lines and have been here for a long time. So during the plague outbreak in Chinatown of San Francisco in the 1900s, the 6 Chinese companies recommended the vaccination plan to their members and the Tongs. Doubting the effectiveness of the vaccination, though, the many Chinese residents of Chinatown refused the inoculations. Several Tongs went so far as to threaten harm to those who did get vaccinated, as well as the Chinese leadership that endorsed doing so. So this is the mentality also. In this context, the Chi Kong Tong was established as an all-male fraternity with the purpose of promoting Chinese values, customs, and the ideal of democracy within a tight-knit network of brotherhood that has ties dating back over 300 years in China. The society is considered the oldest Chinese-rooted organization established in the United States. But here is the connection with Dr. Sun Yat-sen. And it's very important you understand this name. I'm going to put him here on the screen, because this guy, Dr. Sun, who is considered the father of the nation in present-day Taiwan, and the forerunner of the revolution in the People's Republic of China, because remember, the division between Taiwan and mainland China occurred only after the communists came to power, and the Americans in the 50s threatened the communists, saying, we will nuke you if you try to invade Taiwan. This is why China is not united with Taiwan. Otherwise, they will be one country. But also, they develop in a different way, because the moment in which China became communist, it kind of developed in a completely different way. This doesn't mean, though, that Chinese Freemasonry that is in China is not also in Taiwan, where actually most of the military are all part of the Hongmen. So imagine what's going to happen if a war erupts between China and Taiwan. Very conveniently, the headquarters of the Chinese Freemasons in China and their party are always facing on the coast, on the part that faces the Taiwan district. So it will take them very little to say to their brothers in the lodges in Taiwan, put down your weapons and we want to come and get your country. I don't think that America has understood this, but they will definitely understand it next week, because next week is very important, guys, what's going to go behind the scene. Because Dr. Sun Yat-sen lived also in San Francisco, in what are the present headquarters of the Chinese Freemasonry, the Grand Lodge for the World. He is considered the guy, you see, because he came before Mao Zedong, but he overthrew he overthrew the emperor. Remember the film, The Last Emperor? The Last Emperor, and then the communists arrived, and the Forbidden City was spawned, everything else. Well, you have to understand that it was him. If it wasn't for Dr. Sun Yat-sen, they will have never managed to overthrow the Qing dynasty and the emperor. And on the long run, they will never have had Mao Zedong and the Communist Party, that, by the way, were supported initially by the United States, sadly. And the communists.
Why do we do that?
Because you have Democrats even back then. Okay, so.
We're such a great country. I don't understand it.
They also have criminal links with the US Democratic Party. Okay, so, and this is not just a theory. There was a guy called Leland He that was forced to resign. He was a member of the California State Senate for District 8, which covered part of San Francisco and the Peninsula, and was once the second highest ranking Democrat of the California State Assembly. He was associated with Shrimp Boy. Shrimp Boy used to be the head of the Chinese Freemasons, and Shrimp Boy is also a guy who, call him Shrimp Boy because he was like a midget. He's little. Doesn't call him Shrimp Boy. His mother called him, his grandmother called him Shrimp Boy. But he was one of the most fierce guys. He's the one who was in the most fierce assassinations that went on in San Francisco, including that mafia-style assassination that killed a bunch of people in Chinatown. But let me show, well, people maybe don't understand here the seriousness of the situation. So let me remind here, there was and there is people in the Democratic Party who have direct contacts and work with Chinese Freemasonry. This guy, who by the way came out of prison in 2020, so is now out. Well, he was very powerful. Here, this is a thing about what went on back then.
In the Los Angeles Times newsroom, Democratic State Senator Leland Yee was in a San Francisco federal court after being arrested and indicted on charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and traffic firearms. Yee, who is also running for California Secretary of State, is accused of consorting with notorious felons, accepting thousands of dollars in campaign donations, and of promising undercover FBI agents that he could provide connections to international gun runners. The arrest could torpedo the senator's political career as one of the most prominent figures in the state's Democratic legislative majority. 26 people, including former San Francisco School Board President Keith Jackson, were indicted on charges linked to an extensive crime ring allegedly headed by well-known Chinatown figure Raymond Chow, known as Shrimp Boy, who was also...
That's it. This is the headquarters, guy. Go and check what is written on that on that door. Qigong Tong. That's the headquarters of Chinese Freemasonry. And
It's
here,
not a very fancy building.
no, it doesn't have to be. You don't want it to be fancy. That's the trick.
Scientologists have a fancy building.
Well, Scientology are not the Chinese mafia.
There are kind of mafia.
Well, okay, so whatever. But here we're talking about very serious people. And Scientology is a joke comparing to these people. These people melt in acid in a second. So these are coming out of their headquarters with all those boxes, huh?
Arrested and charged. The Times reports the indictment alleges Yee and Jackson defrauded citizens of honest services and were involved in a scheme to traffic firearms in exchange for thousands of dollars in campaign donations to Yee. For more, visit latimes.com and...
Okay, so who is Shrimp Boy? Well, here, let's check out a second Shrimp Boy, and then we go back to the history here of because actually before going to Shrimp Boy, let's go back to Sun Yat-sen, because Sun Yat-sen is an incredible figure whose life around the world resembles really the life of the ultimate adventurer. I mean, this guy left China, went to Hawaii, then went to Hong Kong, then will go to the United States. There will be here, there, everywhere. At one point, of course, at one point, actually, the British kidnapped him when he went to England and wanted to bring him to China so he could get but of course, he was liberated by his own shrimp boys. So in the present day, Republic of China, repeat, and the communist China see Dr. Sun Yat-sen as almost a godly figure, the father of the nation. So the fact that he lived in that place where you just saw the boxes were brought out by the FBI, that was his place where he used to live. For them, for Xi Jinping, that is like the most important shrine ever. Sun Yat-sen began a campaign to overthrow the Manchu rulers of the Qing dynasty. In 1904, a meeting took place between the Chi Kung Tong and Sun Yat-sen in Hawaii, because they had a headquarters in Hawaii, beautiful headquarters in Hawaii. Actually, they had several places in Hawaii that were beautiful, but one in particular, incredible. I think still to this, but I think they all ended up destroyed. But the purpose of the meeting was to rally national support for a future revolution that will take place in 1911. These people were planning Chinese, and then boom. The society also assisted in Sun Yat-sen's campaign throughout the United States. The headquarters of the Chi Kung Tong Agari Chinese Freemasons, based at 3638 Spofford Alley in San Francisco to this day, served as a temporary home for Sun Yat-sen, while he lived in exile, and is still considered the heart of San Francisco Chinatown. That's the real reason why Xi Jinping has accepted to participate in the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation event taking place in San Francisco. And this is the reason why he has secretly requested the organizer to visit the headquarters of Jigong Tong to pay tribute to the so-called forerunner of the revolution, who was in reality a criminal, as you can see from this reading this book. This is a guy who at one point had to fake being born in Hawaii, just like Obama, to not get arrested by the Chinese authority and the Brits, and managed to get an American residence through a fake passport made by the triads for him. Seems like pretty serious stuff, guys. I mean, the fact that he pretended to be born in, obtaining illicitly an American citizenship. When he pretended to be born in Hawaii, inspiring possibly the future US President Barack Hussein Obama. He used his time in San Francisco to connect with all the triad societies of the USA, with the tacit support of the Jigong Tong, Shanshu in San Francisco, for who he rewrote the society's constitutions in a way that tightened and controlled over the other sub-branches that were, of course, what we now know as triads, because then the more, it's like the mafia. You have the high-level mafia, and then you have the mafia that goes around for the racketeering and all the rest. Yeah. Now, the Chinese New World Order, of course, I have exposed, especially in Volume 8, but today I'm here to show you really the history behind what's going on next week. So I wanted to show, first of all, because one thing about, you have to understand, the history of what we have been discussing here has to be very clear. The Tian Dui was born in a Shaolin monastery. It's like a movie, like, the movie Kung Fu. Do you remember Kung Fu in the 70s with the actor? What was his name?
Oh, I never saw it.
That was one of my favorites.
I know. I can't think of it right now.
The Kung Fu series. It's one of my favorites.
You should know. Bruce Lee? No. And the other guy, I know, David Carradine?
Yeah.
I got it right.
Who, by the way, died in very mysterious circumstances, just as Bruce Lee, connected to the riots. Oh. I would like you to read, because the thing is that we want to understand the roots of this Tian Dui. Tian Dui, it's not a regular Freemasonry. A regular Freemasonry in China didn't last that long. And actually, the history of regular Freemasonry can be described very briefly in this article of the Square magazine, which, by the way, doesn't really tell us the history of Chinese Freemasonry. It tells us only the history of European-style Western Freemasonry in China, which is a very different thing. And it talks, in fact, about these periods in which Western Freemasonry reached China, from 1767 to 1949, mainly studying the existence of lodges in China. There were only basically lodges in China that functions under foreign jurisdictions, okay? Then there was a period from 1930 to 49 that basically they developed Freemasonry among the Chinese people, but Western form Freemasonry. And then there was a third period, which basically in 1949, and then there was the occupation of the Caesar of power by the communists, but then there was also the fact that in Taiwan, Western Freemasonry then became the Grand Lodge of China. So the Grand Lodge of China today, the regular Grand Lodge of China, and by the way, when you see QAH here with 3 dots, is querido hermano, which is a way of saying in Spanish, because the first regular lodges were chartered from Philippines and they talked in Spanish. So instead of saying worship, saying dear brother, they would say querido hermano, which is basically the Spanish way of saying dear brother. The Grand Lodge of China, the original, the 1949 one, was this one, and it constituted of lodges that were actually coming from the Grand Lodge of the Philippines, you see? And actually, this is the #1 lodge still in existence in Taiwan. And then they still have lodges also in Hong Kong. But now the situation, of course, Hong Kong, but Amity Lodge #1 is under the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge of China. And he says here, in 1930, a group of American Chinese Master Masons, all of whom were raised abroad, decided to form a lodge in Shanghai for the purpose to bring Freemasonry to Chinese aspirants. And then, as you can see, eventually on January, under the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge of Philippines, and then eventually the Grand Lodge of China was consecrated Masonic in Shanghai. But when Shanghai was basically they couldn't practice Freemasonry anymore because the communists arrived. At that point, they moved to Taiwan mainly, and then also some of them moved back. Also, they moved also to Hong Kong. But this is not Chinese Freemasonry. This is actually Western Freemasonry in China. Chinese Freemasonry instead, the Tiandui was born in a different context, and it was born actually earlier. It was born parallel to the evolution of Freemasonry in the West. It was founded in 1761. So we can say that more or less is parallel to when speculative Freemason was coming together. The Tiandui was founded in 1761, and its roots laid at the time in mutual aid rather than national politics, say some people. Though, I mean, this is the interpretations that Taiwanese scholars give. And Taiwanese scholars, I don't trust them because they are very, just like the Japanese don't want to talk about Japan. This is you have to be a little bit self-critic here. Okay, so going back to Shrimpoi. Shrimpoi became, I really laugh about
I laugh
Shrimpoi.
the way you say it. That's all.
Shrimpoi it was a head of a triads, and at the same time, I mean,
when you say it, sounds like Italians saying Shrimpoi. It just sounds like it's like the mafia.
Well, Shrimpoi was a real, Shrimpoi became the leader, the Grand Master of Jigong Tong in 2006. And there was a series of murders that went on in San Francisco, like it was like nobody's business. Here, let's see when they actually finally arrested and gave 2 life sentences to Shrimpoi. Because, in the end, justice caught up with him. Even after, when his democratic protection,
There's a long rap sheet in San Francisco, but a short.
Okay, that's a long rap sheet. But before we go on with with broadcasting this, I wanted to say he was protected until then by that politician I showed you before. Okay.
Stature, Raymond Chow, he's just 5'5". He was called Shrimp Boy when he was growing up in Hong Kong. The name stuck when he moved here as a teenager. The Golden Dragon Massacre of 1977, the worst mass murder in San Francisco history. 5 killed, 11 wounded when Chinese gang members opened fire in a Chinatown restaurant. Teenaged Raymond Chow was there, but was neither hurt nor arrested. Chow's first brush with the law came the next year when he was arrested for strong-arm robbery. At age 18, he went to prison for the first time. He got out in 1985, only to be arrested again on firearms charges the next year. 1989, back on the streets.
I do a lot of bad things. Prostitution, illegal gambling, operation.
Chow was second in command of the Wo-Hop To triad and ready to boast about it on the History Channel.
I run this city. Who can tell me something I cannot do? Nobody.
Federal agents thought otherwise. In 1991, he was indicted for a 3rd time, and number 3 brought hard time, 25 years. Chow then began cooperating with authorities, testifying against his former boss, Peter Chong. A 4th indictment in 1996 didn't stick, and Chow began presenting himself as reformed. In 2006, KRON4's Hazik Madyun caught up with him at a youth group meeting.
You were at one time the leader of Chinese triad or mafia?
Yes, and I'm done with that.
Well, Raymond Chow told our Hazig Madun that day his message to kids is don't do what I do and that they should trust him.
Yes. He's serving 2 life sentences. But before serving 2 life sentences, he gave the most extraordinary interview, which I want to show you here, which is fascinating. I mean, this guy is something else. I mean, I don't know what he's doing now in prison, but it's definitely a character. And he was, like I said, a typical representative of the Chinese Freemasons. Pretty impressive. What do you think, Christy?
Pretty much.
It's weird.
I'm sure he's getting a lot of commissary in prison.
I'm sure he's getting a lot. Probably more than Owen Schroyer.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is Charleston Pierce. Today you're going to meet a guy that went from being
I will just give you the context so you understand what you're watching here. Sorry, Christy, if I Okay, so I want to explain you the context here. In the period between 2006 and when he was eventually condemned for 2 life sentences almost 10 years later, the Democratic Party tried to clean up his image with a series of interviews on TV, just to propose him as the good guy within the community. Interviewed by this guy. Okay, check out how he was presented to the leftists.
Gangster to community hero on Changemakers.
So community hero.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is Charleston Pierce. Today you're going to meet a guy that went from being a gangster to community hero on Changemakers. All right, here we are. Raymond, how you doing, buddy?
Great.
Thank you for joining me today.
It's an honor to be here.
So, where are you from?
I'm from Hong Kong. I was born in Hong Kong.
Okay.
I come over when I was 16 and pretty much involved with the gang. Actually, I involved in the gang when I was a kid, back in Hong Kong. And I come over 16, 17 I run the Chinatown, 18 I'm in the St. Quid.
Wow. How did it happen? I mean, did you voluntarily get into the gang? Were you pressured into the gang?
First, I get involved with the environment. And then after a while, and then I choose to be in. I joined in the gang when I was 8. And 9, and I stabbed somebody. That's when I first draw blood. And during that time, when you're young, you're involved with it, you experience a lot in life, and you grow up a lot faster.
So you came over to San Francisco from that experience, that exposure, and you come to San Francisco. Was it something that you felt like you needed to keep doing? What about career? What about jobs?
I come over, I try. And I go sign up for the school, like any other normal kid, and go back to normal life. And when I get into school in the 70s, and kind of like a lot of prejudice in the school, I want to go in there, and even you got prejudiced by your own people, Chinese. I get more like kind of rejecting, watching what's going on, and then start getting some fight in the school, and just go back the same way I used to be, to try to.
It was easy to transition.
Try to get some comfort with my own people.
Right.
And
but then as moving on further, how did you become? Because I saw some news about that you were one of the most feared men in Chinatown. So how did you go from coming from Hong Kong, San Francisco, petty stuff here and there, to be this notorious gang leader?
Yeah, it's the lifestyle I choose to be. At that time, okay. I really want to choose to. I want to be the best. I want to be the best fighter. I want to be the best gangster.
So you were committed. You were in it. You were in it to win it.
I'm full time. I'm pro. Even I was in my really young age, and I trained by the older, and I learned a lot of principles, love, teach, trust, and honor, and be confident whatever win in the battlefield.
What changed you from being, I got to prove myself, tough guy, disciplined, military, workouts, to I want to be a good person?
I feel different kind of experience. And just like when I first met you, we're doing some community work, I feel so positive and I just want to be part of it. Seeing a lot of beautiful smile. And I feel like, it's different. I want to I want to keep this feeling, this kind of passion, continue rolling. The same kind of skill I had, I grew up in the gang, and today I can put a lot of people together.
In a positive way.
Yes, yes, definitely. Loyalty, trust, and honor is a principle, it's a moral, and we learn from the older. A lot of time when I was young, I wasn't talking to my dad to learn about that. I on the street learned from the older, I learned about that. And by misleaded by people, we fall into the loyalty, trust, and honor is the foundation to structure. You can use the structure on the gang, and you can use this structure, with the new generation. I have a good, solid belief, grow up as a righteous man. But when I was young, I learned in the wrong way. Through the journey, I just had from naive to know. That journey, travel, through that journey is through a lot of suffering. And like you said, you asked me where I want to be at, after I go through all that, I know I can achieve a lot more and benefit a lot more to the other people, on the new generation and to the people around me.
So your focus right now is to utilize all your experience and knowledge.
Well, your focus is now in jail because in 2016, 10 years after he gave this, this was back in the days when they were trying to relaunch his image. And just after a few years, instead, things changed. And his trial began in November 2015. On January 8, 2016, Cho was found guilty on all 162 charges, including 1 count of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole plus 20 years.
So that's where he is right now.
That's where he is right now. But at the time, when there was this interview, he was kind of like trying to...
He must have just got out and he's trying to turn over a new leaf.
No, it was the Democrat Party. His friends in the Democrat Party who were trying to sell this image of him that didn't really fit.
Discipline and focus to help make a difference. And you're doing that now through your program working with kids. Yes.
I work with kids, youth, and anybody. I mean, they got involved with me in life, hey, you're welcome to take whatever, I have.
It's because of the Democratic Party that people like him, who are criminals and assassins, were led to become leaders of the community. What leaders of the community? This is insane, man.
But using on the right way. Be careful what you learn. It could be very, very negative. But to me, all I offer is my life experience, and to all that to become part of my knowledge and wisdom now. That's all I'm doing.
The kids are embracing that right now that you're talking to. You're able to talk to the kids and tell them, hey, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, or you can make something out of your life.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
And the most important as serve people is more than just, in charge with people.
Right.
I like to serve, with people.
That's a beautiful thing, Raymond, that you've gone through your hardships, your challenges and trials and tribulations. A lot of adversity.
Why this Democrat fruitcake wants to make him a hero? I mean, what's this problem? It's time to find something positive.
What's wrong with that?
Oh, no.
An obstacle, and you're able to do something positive with that to inspire younger generation to be better and to do better. That's a beautiful thing. Thank you.
Well, I wish continue doing more. Doing more.
So your book, is it finished yet?
My book is finished, and looking,
Okay, regarding the book. Okay, because the book, there is something I want to say about the book. Just a second, because it's very important. The book is not out yet. He co-wrote this autobiography entitled Shrimp Boy, the Son of the Underworld, that was supposed to come out in 2011. The title was later updated to Shrimp Boy, Life of Crime, Violence and Redemption Inside the Chinatown Underworld in 2013. The manuscript remains unpublished under a restraining order served to Law in August 2016 after Cho was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison. No one may publish a profit until the government recovers approximately £250,000 in seized assets and fines.
Pounds.
No, dollars.
Okay. We in America.
sorry. I
A
was
little bit more process.
No, so this was it. Just a second. I want to.
So how can people get a hold of you? I think you're on Facebook, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I know Facebook is new. A lot of people are like, Facebook, do I want to go that route? But that's a good way for people to contact you and find out about when your book is going to be out. Because I think what you're saying is that it's not published yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
And,
and the title of it, the title of your book?
The Son of the Underworld.
Son of the Underworld. Okay, great. Well, we're going to look for you on Facebook. Delighted to have you here. We're running out of time, but we definitely want to, at some point, have you back if possible. And we thank you so much for being here today, Raymond. I'm glad that you're doing these positive things in your life. And I know it's a lot going on, but I know you personally that you're a great man. And we honor you today. And we're honored to have you here today. So thank you, my friend.
It's an honor to be in it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching.
Oh, well. that interview didn't age well. Okay, so I guess not. Okay, important now to understand that in the history of the Tiandui, of course, it's very important to also realize the connection with the Shaolin monastery, and also with Kung Fu, the martial arts, which are at the center of their practices. So, it's not only a lodge where you get initiated, and you get initiated, like Benjamin Fulford said, they brought them downstairs. The center character of the initiation, Fulford said, was the master of ceremonies, in charge of the incense. And this is basically an image, a rare image of one of these incense people, because I asked him, you remember when I was with him, and I asked him, what is the character, the most important figure during the initiation? And he told me the incense man, the master of ceremony who holds the incense. And it's interesting because there is also detail here that is supposed to also be done on purpose. His feet, he wears this weird, and you see, he's making a sign.
What does that mean?
Well, of course, I'm not a member of the Chinese Freemasons. So
is that his hair? Is that like some kind of a crown?
No, some kind of a thing he put on his head during the ritual. And the lodges are made in the following way. This is a typical, I mean, you have, in Freemasonry, the volume of the sacred or law on the scranno, as we say in Italian. I don't know how you say it in English. And then this is basically how they do it instead in the Chinese tradition. This is a more permanent lodge, while instead, when they meet up for a quickie, and they have to basically do these quickies because at times the police can come over and can arrest everybody, they do a temporary lodge, which has a bunch of incense, as you can see in this image, with all these writings. But this is a temporary lodge that they can destroy in a moment if the police arrive or somebody intruder arrives. So it's not like the other is a permanent lodge. This is instead a portable lodge. So the Chinese can meet in every corner of the world whenever they want. And this is the connection, like I said, very important with martial arts, because the legend of the Tiandui, of the Hongmen, is that apart from Hong derives from the name of an emperor, and it's also regarded as a word that you shouldn't even utter. Hong, you shouldn't even, it's like, so they call themselves Tiandui. and that's they prefer to call themselves like that, or triads, because of the triangle. Though the triads, like I said, at the lowest level tend to become less and less entrenched with the practices which are instead martial arts is very important for their practices. Okay, so here we have a lodge of Chinese Freemasons practicing martial arts in the streets of New York, for example, which is I had the video, no, but I don't think I don't know if I have it here actually. But what I have, which is interesting, is instead the Chinese Freemasons in Canada, where they also show their martial arts fixation.
提拔理應當，詩句不通凡指示，欲要當場笑聲揚。武宗為家譜，孫宗復大名。古樹兩邊甚分明，眾卿見到放光明，丹心一片傳五祖，誓把胡人一掃平。熱鬧江上，桃園結義三兄弟，流傳萬古姓名揚，姓名揚。
I am the Member of Parliament for Spadina Fort York. You know, as a proud member of the Chinese-Canadian community, I'm, really excited to be here to celebrate a part of my culture, the Lunar New Year. But I think, like as strong as the Tiger is and as strong as this community has been, there are a lot of lessons learned in that courage, and it's in that spirit that I'm bringing to Parliament Hill to stand up and speak up for our community.
I think being a part of this club has been a good way for me to just get back to know my Chinese culture and roots. It's a club that I'm very fond of, and this is something that a lot of us grew up in. So to many, I think this is home.
And so even though I'm not Chinese, they always welcome me into this kind of family atmosphere because, they say like Kung Fu is like a family, not just, you come and learn and you go home.
So you see, there is a link here, and we were discussing it while the video was going on, that seems quite obvious between Newsom and Trudeau,
It's like
who
they're the
loves
same-
China.
They're the same person almost.
And who have all this Chinese background. Remember that if it wasn't for this whole background, Nancy Pelosi would not have had her power in San Francisco.
gonna ask
The
you.
Democratic power is completely linked with these people. Remember, guys. And but please read this part of the origins of this secret organization that we also know as the Chinese Freemasons. Though somebody rightly was saying Chinese Freemason arrived, I think, in 1767 with the prince, this and that. Remember, we discussed earlier, we discussed earlier the fact that there were foreign jurisdictions operating in China. Of course, there were foreign jurisdictions bringing what we regard as regular Freemasonry. Here, though, we are exploring Chinese Freemasonry as the Tiandui, the one that we also know as the Triads, the one that, of course, then stayed in China and has a lot of power and a lot of members all over the world. They have lodges all over the world, guys. There is people like Fulford who even said that there is 6 million members at one point. He talked about millions of members.
I don't
Others
know.
say,
I tuned out on that conversation.
but there is also others that say they're in the hundreds of thousands. But we're talking about very important organization. Please, Christy.
Okay. In 1344, the White Lotus Society was revived by. Don't stare at me.
The White Lotus Society was that Ming secret society that actually brought the Ming to power before the Qing dynasty and the Manchu.
It was revived by Han Shunti, who, in collaboration with four other rebel leaders, Lu Futung, Li and Tu Sun Tao and Su Shuhu, rose against the Mongols with an army recruited by fraudulently claiming blood descent from the Emperor Hui Sung and declaring the imminent reincarnation of Buddha. This army, known as the Red Turban Rebels because of their scarlet headbands, destabilized the Yuan dynasty.
But the Red Turban Devils, they were actually known as devils. Remember?
Red Rebels.
No, but also there was the Red Devils.
Oh, okay. The society was then joined by a Buddhist occult, Chu Yanchang, an experienced strategist. He overthrew the Mongols and in 1368 became Hu Wu, the first Ming emperor. Never before had a secret society overthrown an entire administration to found a new dynasty, which in this
So
instance...
remember that the Ming dynasty that preceded the Qing dynasty was brought by the same secret society, which then in turn later on becomes the Tiandui and later on the Jigongtong, and later on basically gives birth to this Grand Lodge, Worldwide Lodge of Chinese Freemasonry, which is based in San Francisco.
Never before had a secret society overthrown an entire administration to found a new dynasty, which in this instance was even named by the White Lotus Society after two prophets sent Buddha to establish peace and order from revolutionary chaos.
Now, there was at one point in the history of China a moment in which there was a claimant that was waging war, and it has an interesting story. There was basically various moments of rebellion, okay, in the history of China. One of the most important moments that secret societies created a lot of chaos and was anti-Christian because they went against the Westerners and against the Western Freemasons was the Boxer Rebellion. The Boxer Rebellion, known as the Boxer Uprising, was an anti-Christian uprising in China between 1899 and 1901 towards the end of the Qing dynasty. And it was put together by the Society of Righteous and Harmonious Fist. Right and Harmonious Fist. And the rebels were known as boxers because many of the members practiced the martial arts. So they were boxing, Chinese boxing. And it was defeated, of course, because what happened was that the emperor called the Western powers to help him defeat these rebels. But it was already a symptom. It was a little bit like the 1905 revolution in Russia that preceded the 1917 revolution. It was, like these preceding revolutions that are a bad sign, and then they will overthrow later on. Because only 10 years after the end of this Boxer rebellion, so there was the 1911 end of the empire and the takeover by the guy who was at one point living in San Francisco and who we have been discussing, which is basically Sun Yat-sen. And Sun Yat-sen, who has his family also living abroad, was the guy who had those titles. You remember when they arrested those Japanese at the border, and then there was that whole story of the bonds, the famous bonds, guys. You remember the bonds of the Dragon family that became a big issue, and David Wilcock cried on his show like a little sissy girl, and it was it went on the then it was dismissed a while later on.
Your
but
name was mixed up in there somehow.
Yes, it was brought up in this court case. I don't know. It was here we have basically watch. This was, in fact, Neil Keenan, who was a former CIA agent, individually as an agent of the Dragon family. You remember, we're talking about these bonds. The Dragon family was simply the Dragon in the sense of Dragon syndicates. That was, the Dragon family was a cover-up name. But the court case in the end was basically dismissed. Then, let me check here, because what I'm going to show you is very important. Remember that next week, in a few days, Biden is actually meeting with Xi Jinping, and they're doing it in
APEC summit coming to San Francisco. This morning, we're getting a clearer picture of what to expect from President Joe Biden's highly anticipated meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping during the summit that happens next week in the city. Today in the Bay's Ginger Kanahiro Saab is in San Francisco with all new details.
That in-person meeting is officially being confirmed and will happen on the summit sidelines between President Joe Biden and President Xi Jinping of China. Now, President Biden and President Xi are expected to discuss resuming military communications, the future of Taiwan, and the wars in the Middle East and Ukraine.
But we have also Taiwan lurking behind the corner, and Taiwan is a headquarter, is important for both regular Freemasonry and Chinese Freemasonry. And we have here the fact that the evolution of the heaven and earth society is one of the most complex subjects, but it's also very interesting because it leads us to understand this connection, this legend that these Shaolin monks at the end of the Ming dynasty, when the Qing dynasty took control, there was one monastery left in southern China that didn't want to go under the new emperor and the new dynasty. Now, that monastery is a matter of legend almost. Everybody talks about this, but this monastery was the monastery that then will instruct to the martial arts, Kung Fu, the ultimate Kung Fu, the secret society, which then became Tendui, we become the Hongmen. Okay, so this, I don't know if I have a link to that monastery, which is very interesting because it's a monastery that, like I said, some people say they have found the ruins of it. Some people say it never existed. It's the Southern Shaolin Monastery. There is actually a Wikipedia voice that I will show you. So the actual history of this organization originates from this monastery. Here, see? The Southern Shaolin Monastery of Nan-Shaolin, in the name of Buddhist monks whose existence and location are both disputed, although associated ruins have been identified. You have the typical, no? But during the Tang Dynasty, in the reign of Emperor Zhong Tang, warrior monks from Henan Shaolin were deployed from the Shaolin Temple to combat piracy. There was so basically then by the end of the Qing Dynasty, only the Temple of Henan remained. There was some dispute with this whole story, because some people say it's not the place. Some others say it was in the Fujian province, this monastery, and it was the place which inspired this secret society. So let's go back to the West. Here in the West, the Illuminati claim their lineage all the way to the Knights Templars. The Knights Templars were warrior monks that were doing more or less what the Shaolin monks were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a similar kind of history here. Now, the Dr. Sun and the New Empire. In the aftermath of the Boxer Rebellion, China entered a period of flux. That was the period in which there was the rise of this figure that we are discussing today, because he lived briefly in the headquarters of the Xigong in San Francisco, which will be probably visited the next week by the Chinese president, because it's regarded as very important. So this is, I think, an interesting story. The actual Xigong just I think 5 years ago celebrated the 170th anniversary, and this is what they did. Here you see Chinese Masons 170 years anniversary. They had a festivity in San Francisco. Well, you see, they claim, and I actually had contact when I sorry, I don't want to, otherwise we create
you don't have to.
It basically, I was in contact with this guy, and this guy explained me also how the lodge was made. I transcribed everything that I knew from that, that he told me, and together with my friend Luca D'Arquini, I created the scheme of how the lodge was made. Now, I have it in Italian, so it's going to be a little bit difficult for the English-speaking people, but the actual way that the lodge, you see, first of all, the lodges of Chinese Freemasonry, the squares are red and white, not black and white. Then the worship master is called Shanshu and sits there in the east. Then you have the second in command on the left, Xinfeng, which is the second in command. Then you have the vice master of the mountain, Fu Shunchu. And then you have the master of ceremony, the one we discussed before, who sits on the right there of the vice master, and it's called Wen Chu. Then you have the advisor of the white called Park Sin. Then you have the combatant, which is a red combatant, basically translated like that, Hang Quan. Then you have this one with the sandal of the pyre, how you call it, translated in English?
Sandal?
Yeah, sandal, made of, which is basically Cho Hai. And then you have the various, the membro temporaneo, temporary member, Lanterna Blu. I mean, it's difficult. I should have it translated in English too, in volume 2. I don't have a copy now with me. But in any case, there is some similarities. In fact, I got a copy of the initiation, which I'm going to show you, and which I'm gonna read to you in the way that you are, like when you are in a Masonic lodge, and Christy can.
Do I have to answer?
Yeah, well, yeah. You can do the question and answer if we were in a Chinese lodge. Okay, you've been in, you are a Freemason in the West.
Can I ask the question?
Okay.
What business have you here?
I am bringing you numberless fresh soldiers, iron-hearted and valiant, who wish to be admitted to the Heaven and Earth Society.
How can you prove that?
I can prove it by a verse.
How does this verse run?
The course of events is clear again, and sun and moon harmonious. The earth extends to the four seas and receives the three rivers. We have sworn together to protect the throne of Chu and to help him with all the power of Mao.
Why do they want to be admitted to the heaven
Why
and earth?
do they wish to be admitted?
Oh, sorry, I have to do it right. Why do they wish to be admitted to the Heaven and Earth Society?
Because they wish to overturn the house of Qing and reestablish the house of Ming.
How can you prove that?
I can prove it by a verse.
How does the verse run?
We have restored the origin, searched the sources, and examined the ancient poetry. The people of Qing usurped their patrimony, were restored now the empire following the instructions of the leader, were raised by this clear moon and raised the banner of patriotism.
Where are we? Oh, there is a great and petty heaven and earth league. Do you know that?
The answer is in the next page, which I don't have.
Oh,
But I mean, if you're a Freemason and you have
It's very
followed this
Freemasonry.
exchange, this catechism that goes on, as you call it in Freemasonry, it's very similar to what
Yeah, it
goes
is.
on. So
It's
I
very
hope
similar.
that this also makes people understand that there is some similarities, definitely. Also, you know, I mean, geometry is not an exclusivity of the Western world. It existed also in China. They were building just the same kind, you know, maybe different kind of structures, but they knew geometry, they knew numbers, they knew the same. I mean, the basis of the craft is the same for them as it's the same for us. Of course, then you have the addition of the martial arts. You have the addition of the martial arts. Their focus is basically on overthrowing, because it's not only an initiatic, but it's also a political secret society with a political aim to overthrow the Qing dynasty. I don't know the pronunciation Sing in English, but I think it's Sing, not King. But in any case,
I said it wrong.
No, I think it might be the right way. But in any case, I hope that today, in this very complex episode, because it wasn't easy, we have managed to explain you a few things about this whole and why next week is so important. Because here, let's read from here. Actually, read from here. No, read from here. Read from here.
With his new membership, Sun went to San Francisco, where apart from having...
Sun, we are talking about Sun Yat-sen. We are talking about the father of Taiwan and the precursor of the revolution, which is considered almost the father of the nation also by the Chinese from the mainland, the communists. So it is really a unifying figure. That's why Xi Jinping wants to visit San Francisco, to go to the place where this historic guy lived. Please.
With his new membership, Sun went to San Francisco, where apart from having his photograph taken, a copy was acquired by Xing sympathizers who sent it to Beijing, giving away Sun's new westernized appearance. He started to connect with all the triad societies of the USA. In this enterprise, he had the tacit support of the Chi Kung Tong.
Okay,
in
that's
San Francisco.
That's it. Now, let me show to our readers this figure that we have been discussing, because otherwise it will be, we have discussed him so much. It's just right that we show his image. Of course, Bruce Lee was killed by the Dragon Syndicates, if you want to call it like this, the Triads, the Tien Dui, the Hong Man. This was the guy, and this guy, as you can see, is when you go back here, Sun Yat-sen. was a Chinese revolutionary statesman, physician, and political philosopher who served as the first provisional president of the Republic of China and the first leader of the Kuomintang National Party of China. He is called the father of the nation in the present-day Republic of Taiwan and the forerunner of the revolution in the People's Republic of China for his instrumental role in the overthrow of the Qing dynasty during the 1911 revolution. Sun is unique among 20th century Chinese leaders for being widely revered by both the Communist Party in mainland China and the National Party in Taiwan. But guys, this, if you read in the Dragon Syndicate the story of this guy, I mean, it's an amazing story. I mean, it's an amazing story, but he's also a crook. I mean, he used all the crookery possible and imaginable from these trials to put pressure and then eventually overthrow the empire. I mean, overthrowing the Chinese empire wasn't a small result. That's for sure. And for that reason, I'm sure that Xi Jinping wants to definitely pay tribute next week. Thank you for watching the Leo Zagami Show with Leo and Christy Zagami. Please keep on supporting us so we can bring you more incredible episodes of this show. Next week, exploring the Illuminati Occult Part 42, we will focus on spycraft, intelligence services, their connections with the occult, and much more, with an even new vision of spycraft. I don't want to tell you too much, but next week, Part 42 is going to be another great event. And I repeat, please continue to support us. Christy, you enjoyed today's episode?
Yes. My head hurts.
Your head hurts, but now you know why Xi Jinping is suddenly coming to California and to San Francisco, out of all places.
Yep. Now I know.
Even if it's a shithole, it is an important shithole.
Bye.
Bye. And from Palm Springs, that's all. Next week, a little bit